let me simply add that it's my very good honor to meet you, and you may call me...
Hey guys, what's going on? It's VT. Today I want to talk to you about my first impressions for the Mirror's Edge Catalyst beta. So in case you don't know anything about it, this would be a good little thing to tune into, and especially if you didn't get into the beta, you want to know what it's like to actually play it and what it felt like, stick around for a few minutes. We're going to talk it over. So basically Faith, the main character you play as, is a runner, and at the start of this game, which is a reboot of the original Mirror's Edge, she gets out of prison, right? And so prison and basically this whole world, this dystopia or whatever you want to call it, is run by Krugersec, and they're just this big corporation who essentially has made everyone slaves, but no one really knows that. They think they're going about living their lives and they're happy and everything, but they own everything. It's a big monopoly, whatever. So there's conspiracies and all sorts of stuff, and there's resistance people. So Faith is basically a part of the resistance, whether she knows it yet or not, or whether she likes it or not, right? As are her parents. But we'll get more into that in a second. So she gets out of prison, and she joins up with her group of runners, and so essentially goes around and does stuff to ruin Krugersec and to boost their morale and everything around them too. She also owes money to a mysterious Dogen, who is a part of like what I'm assuming is a rival runner group. So all the time you see these henchmen around just kind of like reminding Faith like, hey, you owe some money, or scrip in this game, to this guy named Dogen. So I'm really excited to figure out what's going on there. It definitely makes me a little more interested in the game, that there's this actual coherent story. Things just sort of seem to be more conspiracy-like, a little more in-depth. I really like it a lot more than what it was in the past. And especially with the flashback we get at the end of the beta, or one of the end missions, where Faith as a little child has her sister and her mom and dad with her, and they're at some sort of what looks like picketing or sort of protest. And so her parents actually send the two children away to, you got to get out of here. The children run, and actually a Krugersec employee helps them, which is interesting. He says they'll be safe in this room. And the next scene, and it's all, based on, it's not active, it's actually pictures and this audio behind it. The next scene is Faith actually shooting a gun. I'm assuming that's Faith. It might be her sister. Looks like it, though. And then you see the leader of Krugersec, the big head honcho, the CEO guy. He has Faith's parents, who are apparently some sort of scientists, on their knees, and he's ready to take care of them for being treacherous or something. So definitely Faith is seeming to follow the path of her parents, fighting back against, this big corporation or thing. It's very interesting. I can't wait to see where it's going. So that's essentially the story. And so the beta doesn't really rely too much on that. It's mostly give you a feeling of everything else. And so that's really what I want to talk about today anyway, is sort of how it looked, how it felt, how it sounded, all that sort of things. What sort of features are new in it, what stuff is, old but recycled and everything like that. So let's get into just a little bit more in depth. So the graphics looked amazing, right? There was a little bit of stuttering on PS4 in the same locations, pretty much just leaving your home base. But other than that, it looked so good, right? The nighttime and the daytime, which is sort of a new thing in this game, it does cycle throughout, was really neat, and it definitely needs to happen more often. I'm pretty sure like every time you died, the time pretty much got reset, which happens if you fall off a building or something, because really when you're just free running around, there really isn't any other way to die unless you get to a certain point in the beta, and there's a few mobs of enemies, but once you clear them out, they don't come back, which is one of the things I really wish that they would introduce more to the game, is actual enemies just patrolling the rooftops and stuff looking for these runners. And maybe it will happen later in the game, in the full release actually, where they're sort of trying to crack down on a little bit more. But in the beta, there weren't any enemies just chilling around the rooftops, which would have been kind of nice. But the graphics looked really good. All the textures and everything were fantastic, with the exception of like every single person in the game was blurry. For some reason, every AI, you look at them and they just didn't look right, which was strange. So luckily you didn't see that many people. But the enemies themselves were fine, just like the AI that you would go up and talk to and get close to without getting beat the shit out of. They looked really not right, not good. So they need some improvement of that. And there was maybe some billboards in the distance also looked a little rough, but part of that may have been the fact that they looked like they were just big, like LED screens, like old LED screens that didn't look like it anyway from the city, because again, they're high up in the city, so people don't actually see them at like their highest resolution if they're down on the ground. So why make it really a really nice screen? So maybe that's just sort of that thing, and maybe that's what they're doing to chalk it up as. So we don't need to make those better. People in the game aren't going to see it as well, so that's why they don't look that good. Well, it was a little distracting. Other than that, though, like when you're running around, when you're moving, everything felt really good. When you're staying in motion, you kind of felt like you're in motion just by looking at the screen. It was fantastic. I absolutely love what they did. All the reflections of faith were really cool, and all the, yes, they were scripted reflections of faith usually when you see her, but regardless, it still looked awesome. So, hands down, really good graphics. I have a feeling they're going to improve the people for the full release. And everything else, there really wasn't much wrong with it. So really liked it. The color scheme was fantastic. In the city, it's a lot of white, obviously, that you've seen, which really makes the red of your runner's vision stand out. And there's a few other tones in there, some yellow, some black, some in betweens, and that which really helps bring out the blue of the sky and everything, which is nice in the day. So graphics looked really good. The audio, there's not a lot to say about it, honestly. The soundtrack that they brought into the game is perfect, which is pretty much just like the last game. I absolutely loved the soundtrack. It fit very well, especially with different scenes that you went into. If you were doing a dash or something, time trial, it was a little more upbeat, a little more intense. But if you were just kind of running around, it was a little calmer, a little more relaxing. So, which makes sense to Faith because, when she got out of prison, she was like, oh, it feels good to run again. So running really helps relax her. It's one of those things she just loves to do. So that makes sense. The soundtrack fits Faith's personality. The different types of terrain, you actually can hear those when you're running on. So there's different things on the rooftops, like primarily, gravel and cement are the two main things you're going to run across. But there's also metal. There's also going to be like thin metal and thick metal, and there's also glass. And you hear them all perfectly, so you know exactly what you're stepping on and where you're at, which is nice actually and very useful in the nighttime. And I'm not sure if that is related to enemies being able to sense you or not. I didn't really get to test that out in any of the missions. They didn't really give you that many opportunities, but that would be really sweet if that was the case as well. So that is perfect. That is just how you'd want it to be. I do wish they would add a little more ambiance to the city. Again, you're really high up, so maybe you're not hearing as much on the rooftops, but it would be kind of cool to hear some of the car sound effects, or maybe some birds or something a little more often. I heard birds once in a while, but it would have been nice to hear a little bit of the wind picking up, some of the maybe rain in the future or something. That's a whole new thing, but just to have a little bit more immersion would have been kind of nice with the audio. But honestly, like when you're running and everything, you hear Faith breathing, getting stronger and whatnot when you're running for long periods of time. The motion, the sound of your actual movement and momentum was really cool. That part definitely felt immersive with the running, but I wish the rest of it sort of really expanded upon that. I did have a few issues with the beta with the audio completely cutting out sometimes after a death, but that should be fixed in the full game, so I wouldn't really worry about it. So let's get into more of the gameplay about what it, this is like the core of it. Like the whole thing is pretty and stuff to look at, but if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel fluid, then free running is just sort of pointless. It just gets completely ruined. And so thankfully, I have to say that it did really feel good. Like the fluidity of it, the momentum, the whole running aspect of it felt fantastic. And that's probably due to some improvements with the controls from the last game. Now, I don't exactly remember what they were, but I do remember that it was a little, jarring. It was a little jagged, but now everything seems to be, they seem to have some sort of smart system in play. Like the environments, the way Faith moves, it's all sort of connected. It all feels smart. And you can just feel it just by playing. When you're hopping over an object or something, it makes sense. It fits in the game. It's fluid. It works. And here's the best thing. You can actually improve upon that too. So some of the skills you get and some of the way you can move when you time your jump and whatnot like that, how long you hold your jump down, if it's a high jump, a low jump, if you coil your feet, all of that can make everything feel more fluid. So honestly, the running in this is fantastic. It's the best it's ever been, right? And probably the best ever will be if they ever, try and fix anything that isn't broken or try and release a new game. It's perfect. One of the new things they did really change though, is the combat in the game. So this is sort of a new system that they implement where as long as you're running at, with a full focus shield, you can't be damaged with this, which is it's what the game is all about, right? You're supposed to stay moving. You're supposed to be running. And so they reward the player in that sense, which perfect. Love it, right? But sometimes you have to fight. And they introduce this more in the main story missions than anywhere else, which is kind of nice because the main story missions are some of the most challenging. But the combat actually makes sense to Faith's position and feels really good. So Faith herself is not terribly strong, right? She's cut, she's fit, she's got a lot of cardio going on, but she doesn't weightlift a lot, right? And these other guys that she's fighting up against, the Kruger set guys, they're a lot tougher. So you have to use that against them. So the whole theme of the combat is to use your momentum and their momentum against them. So you can kick guards. You have light attacks and heavy attacks with square and triangle on the PS4. So you can kick guards into each other, into walls and stuff to do more damage. You can unlock different combos. Not a lot of different combos, just some basic ones to help give you a little bit of an edge on them. And the main thing is you get this shift movement, so you can shift in any direction, forward, back, left, right, and which is just a really quick movement where you just jump out of the way, basically. And so it kind of offsets your location to the enemies you're fighting. It also sets them off guard a little bit because all of a sudden they're trying to attack you. If you time it just right, you move out of the way, and they don't know what happened. You can counter them right away. It is a really smart system, and I absolutely love the combat. I think it fits perfectly. And there's also some stuff in between too, so you can be running and you can hit a guard real quick, knock them out so they're not chasing you, and they just keep moving. And I think that is just so much fun to do, and I absolutely love the combat. So there's a few different things to do in the game. The main story missions obviously is one of the most important. And like I said earlier, these are the most challenging, more challenging than anything else in the game, which is, the way it should be, honestly. So they tend to mix things up. They'll have you do not just running, they'll have you do combat and running, and maybe, might throw a time limit in there or something. You have to do a little stealth. You have to make these decisions. You have to go about it sort of in your own way, but you're definitely find the most variety in the story missions, at least the few in the beta that I was able to complete, and I completed all of them in the beta, of course. And I really like the main story missions. Like I said, it just makes sense. It fits with everything, and they're a little bit longer than everything else, but they're still not terribly long, simply because if you know what you're doing, part of the mission is actually finding how to get somewhere, as a runner, the path isn't always straight up forward. These doors are locked or something in one of the Kruger sec buildings. You have to find a way through there. Well, we have to climb everywhere, and so not always is runner vision available. So you kind of have to use your intuition and a little bit of your practice and smarts to get to the end. And so if you know what you're doing, it goes by a little quicker. And so I kind of wish that some of the missions were a little bit longer because I really enjoyed them. I really liked what I was doing in those. But, it was just a few missions. Maybe there's going to be more variety and a lot of differences in the main game as well. There are also a lot of side missions that you can do, and by a lot, I mean there were about equal number of side missions to story missions in the open world, if you will. And these are a little less challenging, but they still offer the same sort of variety that the main story missions do. There was one side mission where I was riding a drone for a little while and I was chasing it, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And there's a lot of combat in some of those too. That's one of the other main ways to actually get experience with combat is to do some side missions, because they're not, like I said, they're not just sitting around, and they're not in any of the other types of activities you can do in the game. So I really like the side missions. I hope they introduce more of them, but I also really like that you can actually track a lot of this through your stats through the main menu. You can see what you have available to you and everything. So the open world is definitely integrated into the game, and let's talk about that for a second, because that is one of the biggest changes obviously in Mirror's Edge, is the open world. And it's not really that open, but a lot of open world games really aren't. They're not really like sandbox games, if you will, as we come to know them. So Mirror's Edge is a little scaled back from that, and within good reason. You're limited to just the rooftops, right? And you're sort of limited to what the developers already paved out for you. You can't like see a building and say, I want to climb that, and you just climb the whole thing up there, because a lot of buildings, they're not going to have scaffolding all the way up them or everything. So it's sort of up to the developers to decide where you go. But as far as what you want to do and where you want to go, yeah, it's open world. If you want to just run around for a while, you can run around with what you've unlocked. And in the beta, they didn't actually open up a whole lot to you. And one of the most annoying things I found was actually to get from one area to another, you had to go through the main hub. There wasn't really any shortcuts, even though the areas were almost overlapping at some points. And so that was sort of obnoxious. But, I never really got sick of running around in the world, because you move really, really quickly, especially if you've gotten used to everything. And that was one of the nice things about the open world in this game, is that you start to get familiar with your environments. And so all the events and everything that you're doing, the missions, the side missions, everything else you take part in, all take part in this same open world. So as you get more familiar with the areas, you get better just instinctively from playing. And so that really made it okay to me. That really made it make sense, because, well, yeah, you don't want to constantly be, discovering, yes, you want to discover all these new paths and ways to get around that are better and faster, which is great, and there are times and places for that in this game, and they work really well. But when you're doing these new mission stuff and you're trying to run away from these guards that are shooting at you with bullets and you cannot fire back, you need to know how to get out of there. And so I really like that in the sense that, Faith really adapts to an environment. You and Faith, the player, that is, get used to this environment and you get better because of it. So I really like how they've made this open world open and how they've limited us to make the experience better, in my opinion. So a few other things you can do in the world are delivery missions. And these are just short little missions that really involve the core of the game, and that's just running. So you basically just run from one point to the other and you're on a timer. You get a few, a small XP rewards and some cheeky dialogue once in a while, but other than that, like they're not that useful. You learn mainly because the runner's vision is the best way to get through these deliveries, because it shows you exactly where to go to get there in the fastest path, because you really don't have a lot of extra time. So if you mess up once or twice, you're going to have to restart, which is good. I like it. It definitely trains you to get faster. It sets these pretty moderately challenging bench points that you have to reach. But after a while, they really got stale, especially since for a while I thought we were just getting endless delivery missions. No, they're just the same ones over and over recycled. Once you complete one, a new one will pop up, and it might start in a different location, but it's going to end in the same spot, because there's only so much of these pick up and drop off locations in the world. So that could be improved upon. It's not terribly exciting in the end, but in the beginning, it's fun and it helps you out a little bit. There's also these things called dashes, which are essentially built-in time trials. You can get 1 to 3 stars on these, and there's leaderboards, obviously. So this is one of the things where the runner vision shows you the way, but it's not the best path. So you definitely need to learn about your environment and find the best path to get there and do it the quickest way possible. And so you can get increasing XP with these. The only problem is that right now a lot of leaderboards are in the beta. It's sort of frustrating because there's an issue with bunny hopping in the game, where if you jump and coil your legs really quickly, it's actually faster than running, which doesn't make any sense, because if you actually try to jump and coil your legs and then continue running again and do that repetitively, you're not going to gain any speed. Simply running quickly is the best way to do it in real life. But so that's, they can shave seconds off here, but that, skews the leaderboards a little bit and kind of screws you out of, those best times. So they definitely need to improve the dashes, but I really like them. And you can fast travel to the dashes, which is really nice too. I do think they need the addition of a waypoint at the end of the dash, because sometimes when you're new and you're trying to find the best way there, you really don't know where you're going. You get lost. So a waypoint would be really helpful. But the dashes are a lot of fun. It's great to get those 3 stars. It was pretty challenging too to get 3 stars, which I absolutely loved. So I definitely can't wait. I hope there's more of them in the full game though, right? Because these programmed in dashes are probably the best paths, the most fun paths you can make with a bunch of different varieties. Now, there are other options for some user-created content, such as making your own time trials, which is essentially just making your own dash. The issue I found with this is they were just everywhere on the map. Everyone thought, wanted to make this awesome time trial that they had, and honestly, user-created content isn't always the best. So that, that's fun. I like it for the friend thing, but not so much for the whole internet thing. I think that's better in a group, and I think that would be a lot of fun if a bunch of your friends had the game. You can make your own time trials and beat each other. But when you're just trying to beat like the best people on the internet, you get pretty shamed pretty quickly. They did add a little bit of customization to Mirror's Edge, which is kind of nice. They basically took a tag right from Infamous and just said, okay, we're going to do practically the exact same thing. You can go up and hack a billboard, much like you could spray paint a billboard in Infamous, and all of a sudden your logo, your avatar, your tag, whatever, will appear on this billboard instead of KrugerSec. And so it's fine. You can also do it to people's TVs in their houses if you find them and they're on, which is kind of cool. The TVs are awesome in the game, by the way. Check them out. They're huge. And so there's little collectibles you can earn throughout the game by doing certain things, and you'll get these different packages that give you different customization options for like your emblem, and you can edit those in the companion app, which isn't out yet, so I didn't get to play with that, which is unfortunate, but it's fun. Your friends will see it in their game, which is cool. You also can get customization for your runner's vision, so instead of it just being solid red, I got like a red rings essentially, so my character was like darker red with a little bit of black and it's turning rings. I think that's really neat. I really like that. I hope that they don't limit it to just the color red. I hope they added like different colors like green, because that would be sweet, or at least different shades of red-like things like orange and pink, maybe. I don't know. I like the customization. I think it's fun. There's not much else you can do because clothing you're never going to see on Faith anyway, except for maybe her shoes, or like gloves on her hands, which would be sweet for them to integrate, but I don't think they're going to, and it's not really that necessary. So overall, in summary, the game looks and feels incredible. It's fantastic. I absolutely loved every second I spent with the beta. The story is definitely more inviting this time. It's a lot more intriguing and definitely really makes you want to play more and discover more, but I think it's going to end a little too quickly. I think you're going to burn through the story pretty fast, right? Faith is also more likable because she actually has a personality this time, and the voice acting all around is actually really good. I did find some stuttering issues and a few non-game breaking glitches in the beta, but again, it's a beta, so hopefully those are fixed. Honestly, my biggest concern is that I just sort of ran out of things pretty quickly to do in the beta because the missions didn't last too long, and the deliveries are sort of repetitive, and once you beat the dashes, there's only so many seconds you can shave off your own time, right? So honestly, I'm really looking forward to the game. I really cannot wait for it to come out, but I don't think I'm going to get it at full price. I think I'm going to try and wait for it to go underneath $40. Yeah, so if you guys played the beta, or if you guys have checked out any of my other videos, let me know what you think. I'm sorry this first impressions ran a little long. I'm just sort of winging it this time. I didn't want to type anything up, mostly because I didn't feel like it. I got a few more videos of Mirror's Edge I'll probably put out, and some other stuff coming in the future. So let me know what you thought in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy.